Welcome to Kiwi Radio.nz. I'm Ralphie, interrupting this current broadcast with a live show right now. Thoughts about, well, pretty much everything. What ignited me to do this podcast special was a little dream I had this morning. Every now and then I have a really vivid dream, and it gets me all fired up and inspired. Plus also I want to cover a few things happening in New Zealand as well and kind of get your thoughts, hopefully interact with people either in the comments, etc. That'll be nice. So make a post, or even if you're listening to this after the fact, send me a message on the contact page, kiwiradio.nz/contact. Anyway, shall I tell you about this little dream that I had? Well, I'm going to put some jazz music in the background first. Put your feet up in our imaginary lounge. Just me rattling on about stuff. Well, I had a dream. Really I had a dream. Yeah, I had a dream. It was really vivid. Basically, I was viewing a room full of fat cats, the decision makers of the world, in a boardroom. And what they do in this boardroom is they figure out the next stages or what they're going to implement through uses of shot glasses in this instance. Through shot glasses, and the shot glasses represented funding. So every shot glass represented, say, $50 million. And there was some gambling in between, like, you know, they were kind of gambling as well while doing this, drinking, having a merry time. And this one guy collected his reward, right? So he collected his winnings, and because of that, good hand of his, using the gambling game that they were doing, he gets to decide the distribution of the wealth, the funding, through use of these shot glasses, which represented 50 million each. And one of the hot topics was world hunger. And instead of funding world hunger, this politician / fat cat drinks the shot glass, and he said, well, I was thirsty and low on sugar. And that's the dream. I had a dream. Do I sound like Martin Luther King right now? Far from it. So how are you doing? Welcome to the lounge. Welcome to the secret podcast, which you can, by the way, support if you really want to. Go to kiwiradio.nz and /radio. There'll be some podcasts there. Most of it's free, but you can actually chuck 99 cents for the bonus podcast that I'll be chucking up here and there, including this one. So what do I want to cover in terms of what's happening here in Aotearoa, New Zealand? The last few weeks of 2022. Can you believe it's almost 2023? Wow. Time to celebrate. And speaking of celebrations, a couple of days back, I actually had my birthday, which means it's officially my last year of being in my 30s. I'm going to reach the new decade of 40-something. So if there's any 40-somethings out there and you've got some particularly good advice for me, I'd love to know. I'd love to know what the 40s have ahead of me. Apart from complications of further medical complications as my body deteriorates to the unforgiving crescendo that is death. I do worry though, because if you remember 2 years ago, we've been through 2 years of health, 2 years of misinformation, conflicting narratives. You don't know what's up, you don't know what's down, you don't know what's left, what's right. That's definitely how I felt. And if you recall, I was coerced into the first Pfizer vaccination plus the booster, but then I had to write a contract with my wife saying that I was requesting bodily autonomy and that no more, otherwise that's the end of that. So it was all contractual, and I feel like I just need a bit more data, maybe 10 years worth, because that was rushed, wasn't it? I mean, vaccinations are not a new thing, obviously, and I'm not a doctor, but if you grew up in New Zealand, you got the whole Plunkett book where they have the recommended vaccinations for kids from 0 to 2 years or 5 years old, and feels like a routine sort of subscription, right? Yet the schools don't hand out, free apples and things like that. It's always the special magic potion. I always find that with the pharmaceutical companies, you can't always believe what's in the advertisement. I mean, throughout history, it's kind of this compounding distrust of what is really the reason. Is the doctor trying to fund his new vehicle sports car purchase, or is he actually trying to help? The thing that comes up in my mind right now is the whole Camel's cigarette situation back in, let me get this straight, I believe the 50s, where you had all those, the 50s, where you had all those Camel brand of cigarettes being pushed by X amount of doctors saying that was the recommended one. Everyone has a price, and is my concluding statement with that, is that you can never really know the true purpose, the true drive as to why they are wanting you to do that. And I've said this before, it's like the pearl scenario, the oyster extraction scenario, where the wealth or the true value is always extracted at a later stage, like it's an oyster. Like it's a pearl from out of an oyster. As if, you take this and complications come later. Anyways, I digress. I'm looking forward to my wonderful body disintegrating in my 40s. Oh dear. Oh, got to start that real buffer of savings now, right, while I can. I do have a point to this. I do. No, I just like the jazz music in the background. I think that's a great touch. I feel like it makes me feel like I'm in a cafe with you right now, and I can rattle on about what's in my brain, because there is a lot in my brain. There's another reason why I wanted to do this special podcast episode today, is it does give me a chance to kind of reflect and also organize the electrons in my brain and try and figure out some sort of sense of what's happening. New Zealand, that's where I'm at. Let's talk about that right now. What do I observe in my neighborhood? And let me know if you're observing this as well. What I've observed is I always look at advertisements, right? And the saying goes, there's no such thing as a good advertisement. Well, I guess unless your house is burning down and the advertisement is for water, that's probably the only exception. But most advertisements you don't really need. Like, for example, there's a lot of loan shark advertisements in New Zealand at the moment. You don't really need loan sharks, do you? You don't need a 300% interest loan. Banking, do you feel like those banking ads are always like trying to be your friend? Well, we know that bankers are not your friends. That whole period at the start of the pandemic with the low interest rates, I think that was just the ploy, the hook to get people into the addiction that is the new, I guess, cigarette addiction that is called debt. Mortgages. Banks needed to figure out some sort of debt tool, and mortgage is a great way of doing it because everyone needs a home. So yeah, there are plenty of banking advertisements. You don't really need, well, I guess you need a mortgage, but it's not really good for you, is it? And so I'm looking around my neighborhood, looking at all the, the advertisements at the bus stops, what they're advertising in the, on billboards and things like that. So there's a lot of that, but also I've noticed a lot of charities asking for money. And there's a lot more, backpackers, I guess, they're coming back in now to New Zealand, requesting that you donate to X, Y, and Z. And most of the charities I've never heard of. It's not like it's the Red Cross or something that's been around for ages. It's some weird charity that's just popped out like a mushroom. And again, I have a point to this. I spent 2 years in London as part of my OE. I got to visit 15 countries while I was there, the 2-year period. And obviously when you're traveling, you pick up the odd job here and there. One of my most interesting jobs that I've mentioned earlier was being an elite waiter for politicians like the Bill Clinton Foundation and Hollywood celebrities, famous musicians. I got to see a lot of stuff backstage, bankers and things. One of my favorite quotes I heard: "To prepare a nation for war, you must instill in everyday life hatred, fear, racism, and divide." That kind of thing. Or Bill Clinton saying the purple elephant in the room is overpopulation. That was in 2013. So, anyways, you get a lot of access. But one of my other jobs, which I held for a few weeks because I was in between, I think, like I'd come back from a trip and then I was off to, Ireland or something like that, like it was an in-betweener job. I think I was there for maybe 2-3 weeks, that kind of thing. They hired me on the spot because I had a Kiwi accent, and they love Kiwi accents because they find it friendly and neutral, instead of the Liverpool accent, mate, rough and guts. Tradie, oh my goodness, I spoke to a tradie today about something. Tradies are rough guts, right? He was yelling and swearing at his Labrador in the background because it ran across the road to get some ducks. And anyways, tradies, Liverpool, not the most palatable sometimes. Sorry if I do not mean to offend if you are a tradie from Liverpool. But anyways, they love Kiwi accents because it's neutral, it's calm, it's friendly. And so immediately I got this job at a call center, outbound call center, sales center, and you guessed it, it was for charities. So I would ring. So this is how charity companies worked in England anyways. Say, for example, you're at a festival, you put your email down, cool beans, because, you get a free something at the festival. Or you donate maybe a little bit and then they get your details and you think that's the end of that. That kind of thing. So that's their doorway to you as a sucker, really. And so what they do is they add you to a database, and then voila, people like me who are desperate for a job at the time, obviously due to the expenses of London, get to call you and ask you for more money. As if you had all the money in the world. I'm all up for, charitable things, giving to others what they may not have. But the thing is, when I do it, say I come across, say, homeless person, I try and do it in person and maybe have a chat to them, see where they've gone wrong. A lot of the homeless people in my community, they just, you hear time and time again, they just make one or two wrong decisions, or their circumstance changed, like through divorce and things like that, or getting fired. And, there's going to be a lot of that now with the mandating of things, which is, I guess, in my opinion anyway, a gross sort of interception to human rights. But anyway, so here I am at the call center. I get to call you asking for more money, and the point of this story is I would have these fact sheets for each company that I was representing, because every call It wasn't just one charity that I was working for. It was multiple, like in the hundreds. Not like, and there was always a new charity, right? So you have your bread and butter, like the Red Cross and all that sort of jazz I mentioned. But then you'd have all these weird charities that were quite specialized, like they would hit one very specific pain point. And what I learnt was, with every company, I had to overcome what people might say, overcome their objections. And so I had a fact sheet for every company to try and overcome those objections. And one of those objections would be the corruption index. And every charity company basically had a point system or a rating system, rating them on how corrupt they were. And what I meant by that is, say, for every dollar that you donate, X amount actually goes towards the cause. So I guess the more percentage of money that actually went towards building the homes in third world country, whatever the cause was, the less corrupt it was. And there were two kind of fees for every company. So that you had the administration fee, and then you had the cost of running the charity percentage. So they were actually separate. You'd think it'd be the same thing, but in this case it wasn't. So without the whole running of the actual operation, such as people's salaries and things like that, administration fee was interesting because some of them, I kid you not, had a 90% administration fee. So what does that even mean, right? It makes you wonder. Again, I have a point to this.
Hey!
So, a lot of bus stops in New Zealand at the moment, a lot of billboards are advertising for these charities. It's like London all over again. And this is a relatively new thing since the pandemic. I mean, they've been around, but there's definitely a boosting of this kind of thing. And even if I came across a recent article at the moment, and I'm always really kind of skeptical when mainstream media pushes certain articles. And there was one this month about Mike King. So if you don't know who Mike King is, he's a New Zealand personality, shall we say, former comedian, but in my opinion, he's really not funny. But, he's, my goodness, like he's in infomercials and things like that, like 30-second pork infomercials and things. So he'll put his name to anything, really. And I've been in the in the advertising game as well, or the extras game as well. I was actually I didn't know it at the time, but I was an extra for what turned out to be the one true source of gambling in New Zealand, which is the lottery. And for one day's work, I got $700-800 New Zealand dollars, but the main lead actress got $10,000 for that. And usually when you do a day of filming for an ad, in this case we filmed like 3 or 4 ads in one day. So you had the normal ad, then you had the Christmas campaign ad, so we had to change clothes into Christmas clothes and all that sort of stuff. They try and get their money's worth, really. So anyways, here I am. So I know a thing or two about basically selling your soul for an ad. It's good money, it can be really good money. So anyways, Mike King, there's an article about him right now about mental health. And, oh boy, anything that... you've heard me say about the Hegelian dialectic, right? Problem, reaction, solution. Every mainstream article has this kind of structure. So I tried to break it down in that way. So anyways, here we go. Here's the article. Mike King breaks down discussing latest suicide rates, makes tearful plea to improve Aotearoa's mental health services. So that's the pain. Okay, they're hooking you in with the pain point. Suicide rates, and it's not a good thing. A lot of people are I guess, seeing no light to the end of the tunnel of tyranny that's happening. So, unfortunately, they only see one way out. And, there have been times where I've felt the same, but I always I came back to mental health podcasts like Dr. Deloney's show from the Ramsey personality and stuff. And I just remember hearing something about if you do take your own life, some people forget that there will be people that do end up missing you, that kind of thing. And with a little baby, it just really hit home that's it's not all about you. And there's and when you do have sad days, there are always better days, So that you learn that through, I guess, life, being almost 40. You learn that, like when you're depressed when in your 20s, oh my goodness, there is no tomorrow, right? But yeah, as you grow in age and you put everything into perspective, yeah, you do realize there are reasons. So anyways, the article about Mike goes on, and here it is. A tearful Mike King has broken down on radio discussing New Zealand's latest suicide rate, saying the system is effed up and more urgently needs to be done. So last month, the Deputy Chief Coroner revealed New Zealand's suicide rate had dropped for a third year, but Maori continued to disappointingly be affected. Now that's interesting. Man, I've done a lot of odd jobs, and this just really reminded me of something. So one of the odd jobs is, obviously I'm an audio engineer by trade, and when you're in the entertainment industry, you do get a bit of access. And I remember in New Zealand going to a party, doing this sound, and it was a room full of lawyers, right? And you think, when lawyers have meetings, it's about, I don't know, a case or something, or something along those lines. But it was really weird because it was a think tank kind of meeting where they were talking about the economy of Maori. And I was just really interested. It's like, why, even now with New Zealand, and New Zealand's meant to be the most mishmash of nationalities, why would they even have something like that? I don't know. Anyways, it just reminded me of that. I guess with the Maori community, unfortunately, and this is not being racist or anything, a lot of them just don't have that. They have that broken family system, right? So the education is sometimes not as good, and because you have broken family systems, the normal support structures aren't there. So, you know what I mean? Like, for example, I'll give you another story. I was out with my son and we went to this outdoor thing. It was basically Scouts. It was a free event by the council or something like that, trying to turn around this park because, they had a history of people dumping rubbish and things like that here. And so they were trying to put on events to make it, to turn around the sort of, to turn around the park's image. And the scout leader, or should I say event leader, it wasn't really Scouts, but it felt like Scouts, because, we were doing things like putting up hammocks and eating wild lettuce, just like wild things in the bush. So he was saying that he basically adopted a kid, and the rigmaroles of that, because he felt like he was just a number, really. And he had to look after this really young child under the age of 2 who was found roaming the streets, looking at the bins for food, kind of thing. And the police picked this kid up at 4 a.m. in the morning. And anyways, long story short, broken family, didn't really get to know exactly the intricate details, but so he's looking after this kid, and he had to, after 9 months, give it back. And it was kind of heartbreaking because you get attached, really, to this person that you've been looking after But that's another, so that was from that kind of ethnicity, the Maori ethnicity, and it's just another example of sort of the broken down family unit that I'm talking about. So, yes, obviously, if you don't have someone to talk to, the worst thing is to kind of go through something or trauma on your own and not reaching out for help. So, unfortunately, that's why suicides happen. But anyway, Anna Tutton, going back to the article, Anna Tutton released the figures mid-2022, which showed 538 people died by suspected suicide, down from 607 the year prior and 628 in the year 2020. So it's always hovering around the 600 people, and wow, why didn't they lock down New Zealand for that? Do you remember the first lockdown was because of one case of the Vista? One case. Right? And now there's like hundreds because of the mandates. Won't go into that quite yet. But makes you wonder, right? So anyways, yes. So I Am Hope founder King said the system is effed up and no one is doing anything about it. Here it is. Here's the plug leading up to their charity. He goes on. If you put your faith in the system, there is better chance that your child will die. Wow, what a statement. Really? Because no one is coming. Now we can either sit or we can change and whinge about it. Or we can whinge about it, or we can do one of two things about it. We can invest in our own system, which is Gumboot Friday, this name of this charity. If you can't invest, stop being silent. So, hook, line, and sinker. I mean, look, maybe he's trying to help people, but it's also maybe that he's trying to fatten his own wallet, right? Mike King, the face of pork. Come on. Does he have a personal vendetta, maybe? Let's continue, because he does mention something personal here. Stop being silent and leaving it for other people to do it, Mike goes on, because other people are tired. I'm tired of leaving my home on the effing weekend. I love it when they add naughty words to try and build up the emotion. And having my wife crying because I'm not home. King said as his voice began to break. I'm tired of all these effing virtue signals on social media telling me that what I should be doing. I'm just tired. I can't do it. We have to do effing something. Note on that. Social media. Who cares what other people think? Lead your own life. Who cares what other people think? People you don't know or don't care about you. Doesn't really matter. Anyways, this is why I'm off social media. He goes on. We cannot let the bureaucrats that run this country, and this is not a political thing. If you think that when National gets in, things are going to be different, you're living in La La Land. I agree with him on that. If we don't do something about these arrogant bureaucrats, then no one is going to do anything. Again, I believe on that. Because, I'm sorry to put so many side notes, I just didn't realize that there was just so much quality things to say about this article. I agree. Regardless of who you vote for, it's never really going to help you, because do you remember when Miss Jacinda came into power, the Labour Party, it was the promise of affordable housing, and Kiwi Build came along, and not really. Back then it was, 500, 600,000 New Zealand dollars, and that was unaffordable, so they were trying to build the Kiwi Build to have more affordable housing through townhouses and things like that. Don't get me started with 2030 agenda, getting people boxed up into these coffins that is townhouses. But anyways, now the average housing cost is $1 million plus. So that didn't really work out, did it, Jacinda? But it got you into power. So I agree with Mr. Mike about that, regardless of even if National get in. As if they didn't fib the numbers anyways. Not who votes, it's who counts the votes that matter. Do I want to read more? No, not really. So that's the article. So it goes on, hook, line, and sinker. It gets your emotional strings pulled, and then he plugs his charity. So there you go. and I'm not making light of something heavy such as suicide, but anything that the mainstream media propagate or advocate or allow has another reason. And which is really the weird thing about this whole Jacinda thing about clamping down on misinformation and all this sort of jazz. Like, the Herald or whatever don't do that. You fund them millions of dollars, a team of $5 million, as they call it, because you funded them in 1 year and bailed them out here and there and buddies with the reporters by first name. And look, if you think Jacinda's speeches are unique, it's really not. It's from the playbook of the WEF or whatever, because a lot of other politicians say the exact same thing, word for word, but slightly different. Word for word, but slightly different. Shall we read an article about misinformation from Jacinda? Oh, it's really tiring talking about these articles that you know have another reason. Jazz. Jazz is good. Musical break. So, Ardern said misinformation often originated as propaganda from foreign actors such as Russia. Russia word. It was harming New Zealand's social cohesion and was proven to fuel terrorism. Prime Minister Jacinda sat down with Emmanuel. This is dated, by the way, mid-2022. It's now late 2022, but I don't like to say specific dates sometimes for these recorded podcasts because they do replay on kiwiradio.nz. So I kind of make it vague. I do that on purpose, people. She described it as a threat which would stoke anything from war and terrorism to public health risks. The vaccinations. The response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the riot on Parliament's grounds in Wellington, and the March 15 terror attack Christchurch had all expressions of misinformation, she said. Russian propaganda about the war in Ukraine was spreading beyond its borders, she said, showing how false information could be used to fuel war. Okay, let's stop there for a moment. Fuel war? What, people talking to their friends and neighbours trying to figure things out of what you're doing over there in the beehive? Fueling war? Excuse me? It's your governments that fuel war, mate. What's the saying? I actually had some show notes here. You know, like, all these Western countries, there's a saying that I heard on some podcast that a country can be democratic domestically but be imperialist overseas. Yeah, that's how I feel about governments. It's not us, the people, the civilians, trying to figure things out, reaction to your Hegelian dialectics. We're not fueling the wars here. We're not the ones that are arming the military-industrial complexes. We're not the ones misinformating information of things. No, it's you. Anyways, by the way, people, that, my friends, is what they do. Jazz. Yeah, I'm definitely going to do this more and more again when I'm doing an off-the-cuff, unscripted podcast, is I'm just going to play jazz in the background, because whenever I'm trying to think of the next thing, I could just put on a musical break. You're tuned to kiwiradio.nz. Yeah. Imperious overseas. Let's go to America, for example. Let's take a seat back into history. A list of wars involving the United States in the last, since I was... The Mexican Border War, 1910 to 1919. Little Race War, 1912. In Cuba. United States occupation of Nicaragua, 1912 to 1933. In Utah, Colorado, the Bluff War, 1914 to 1915. So far, all US victories, by the way. United States occupation of Veracruz, 1914. The occupation of Haiti, 1915 to 1934, part of the Banana Wars. United States occupation of the Dominican Republic, 1916 to 1924, part of the Banana Wars. World War I, 1917 to 1918. New Zealand came to that, mate. We learned all about it through school. Was it indoctrination? Was it the winners of history writing history? I don't know. I wasn't around. Russian Civil War, 1918 to 1920. Was that animated movie Anastasia about Russian Civil War? By the way, that animated movie was not historically correct. Posey War, 1923. Location, Utah. World War II, the big one. 1941 to 1945. Korean War, 1950 to 1953, part of the Cold War. Vietnam. Born in Vietnam. 1955, sporadically to 1975. Well, in the same kind of period, the Laotian Civil War was happening as well. Lebanon Crisis, 1958, part of the Pigs Invasion, 1961, Dominican Civil War, 1965 to 1966, Korean Conflict, 1966 to 1969, Cambodian Civil War, 1967 to 1975. I could go on. United States invasion of Grenada, 1983. Now we're getting to recent history. Bombing of Libya, 1986, Tanker War, 1987 to 1988. United States invasion of Panama, 1989 to 1990. The Gulf War, 1990 to 1991. Iraqi no-fly zone enforcement. Is this boring, by the way? Goes on. You can find all this stuff in on the socials. But let's go to 21st Century Wars. War in Afghanistan, 2001 to 2021. That was a long one, wasn't it? Was it to do with the war on terror, or was it through the poppy fields? I don't know. American intervention in Yemen, 2002 to present. Iraq War, 2003 to 2011. So anyways, long story short, America is meant to be the most democratic country along with England, and let's not go through that history. Yet, they're imperialists overseas. And look, the East, the West, Russia, none of them are the good guys here. But it's certainly not the civilians creating the chaos. If this is buffering, by the way, on other platforms, make sure to check out the non-buffered version on kiwiradio.nz. Thank you. Love you to bits. I try and multi-stream to other platforms, but I just find that I'm just getting throttled. So I accidentally closed that window, so I'm not even sure if we're live streaming there anymore. But anyway, yeah, just throttled, eh? So that's why we had to create our own kiwiradio.nz. If you love what we do, please donate. See, that's my Hegelian dialectic. Whew. I just want to get through some of the points that I wanted to get off my chest today. So, yeah, recruitment of military in New Zealand, speaking of this whole history of military campaigns. Looks like if you look at all the billboards now and the if you're out shopping, right, or if you're outside a university or tradie school, you'll always find the same military push for joining the army / Air Force right now, whatever, to NZDF, New Zealand Defence Force. And firstly, very interesting placement of the billboards because they're obviously targeting the youth. I still remember that stat where to control a nation you need like one policy officer, or in this case military, for every 200 citizens to kind of control that area. Yeah, that's why there's a push, people. And it's always the young people too, right? Because especially now with the crashing of the economy, when people don't have anything else to kind of go for, they're funneled into these positions through poverty, right? I still have that image of in America, January 6th, where they deploy their military on civilian protesters. And there's all these photos of the military, taking selfies of themselves, eating lavishly before being deployed in that area. It's like they're being rewarded like a good puppy. That imagery just sticks to me. So join the military. You'll get a nice lunch. Well, I only have really one more point for this podcast. Just building it up, people. Jazz. If you know about our other community on kiwiradio.nz called Mike in the Night, shout outs, Mike Martins, Skype, Mike Martins 1980 to get involved. Airs live on Odyssey, exclusive on Odyssey, Sundays 2 p.m. New Zealand time. Head along, join the conversation. But anyways, on the Mike in the Night community, when you call in or when Mike Martins is hosting the show, he always talks about word salads. And so I came up with a word salad. Are you ready? My word salad of the day is tax heist. Definition, self-proclaimed definition of tax heist. Create the next chaos and in turn win short-term gains. Champagne on tap. 99 points in the points of seconds. So it's an original song that I'm referring from. If you want to listen to my original music, head along. It's the only way I can express myself in this world of chaos. Go to ralphie.bandcamp.com. That's RALPHE.bandcamp.com. You might even find that song. It's an old Metronome Productions collaboration. 99 spots in the point of seconds. What was I saying? Word salad of the day is tax heist. The reason why I wanted to bring that up is, do you notice that anyone that gets into power in New Zealand, John Key, through the magic that is derivatives, gambling essentially, House of Merrill, he sold his house. He's selling his house, by the way, this year. Royalty has been there and everything. Head along. I think he moved next door. I think it's still on offer, but yeah, saw that on online that he's selling. But anyways, probably one of them. Anyways, Miss Jacinda, who tenfold her net worth since coming into power, so I hear. I haven't actually got access to her bank account, but I wouldn't be surprised. All these people, the CCP especially known for showing face, anyone really, no one's prone to greed. That's the human trait that we endure. And they all come into power for short terms, short periods, and reap the rewards while they're there in office, right? And that's why this whole, you can tell they're lying when their mouth is moving. Misinformation. Is that really just gaslighting because you're the one propagating misinformation? Again, it's not the civilians pulling out the military-industrial complex or the monopoly of power, enforced power. Nope. We're not the ones bringing out the sonic weapons and things like that at protests. Nope. So yeah, they're lying when their mouth is moving. But anyways, I wanted to conclude the fact that tax heist. Create the next chaos, win short-term gains. Doesn't it just say everything I needed to say in that one word salad? It's an original word salad, by the way. So if you start hearing that in other podcasts, Ralphie from KiwiRadio.nz, yeah, I'm the one that coined that. Anyways, that's all in my brain. That was all. This has been an hour-length special. Brought to you by... What? Do you want to listen to some music other than jazz? Let's check out some of the latest editions on KiwiRadio.nz. What am I digging? There's a track called Lights. Artist is Bell, B-E-L. Now playing on KiwiRadio.nz. If you've got original music you'd like to submit, hit the contact page on our website. Thanks for joining me in this special.
Headphones in with the volume down. I don't think we met, but I've seen you around. Lights overhead buzzing way too loud. Trying to read your lips, but without the sound. Did you think that you could leave without saying goodbye?
That's the track Bell. Thanks again for joining me on today's special. If you value the original resource that we have called kiwiradio.nz, we'd love you to be part of the community. And also shout outs to MDWH and also Anna Kay in Australia for being sponsors of the show and radio station. If you'd like to become a sponsor, then just get in touch, really. That's it. And speaking of lights, camera, action, don't be distracted by the circus that is presented to us. Just remember what I said earlier. To prepare a nation for war, you must first instill in everyday life hatred, fear, racism, and divide. Once you know that blueprint, you can read between the lines. Thanks again. I'm Ralphie. I have spoken.